Good afternoon. I am Chandan Raikar from Department of Media Studies, Reva University. Today, we are having our second session of our national level faculty development program on contemporary approaches in media. I request all the attendees to please turn off your web cameras and keep your microphones on mute. However, you may unmute them during the question and answer session. Also, please note that it is mandatory to fill in the feedback form to get your e-certificates. The feedback form will be provided at the end of the session in the chat box. Over to Bhagya now to introduce the guest for today's session.
Thank you, Chandan. Good evening, everyone. Allow me to welcome you all and allow me to welcome our guest today, Mr. M.S. Shyam Sundar, who is a former professor of law in Bangalore University and is a visiting faculty professor in other institutions as well. He is a practicing senior advocate for 27 years on several areas of law with his office at Proclaimed LSI in Infantry Road, Bangalore. He practices at all courts, including Supreme Court of India. He has appeared as a panelist on various TV shows and is a writer who has published several works concerning law and other areas. He has received state awards and several institutional accolades for his services and deliveries. Some of his students are now judges at various courts and located at virtuous posts serving the government and esteemed organizations. He likes to share the knowledge and thinks that learning has no limit and one can learn from anyone at any place. And he believes in a rational and realistic approach. He has visited nearly 46 countries across the globe to learn and grow his knowledge. And of course, he's a workout freak and believes in good health as the key for good life. We welcome you, sir. Over to you.
Very good evening to you all. I think I am audible.
Yes, sir.
It's, of course, it's very difficult for a person to deliver address without looking into their faces, especially me as a teacher, me as a lawyer. You always feel better when you look into the people, the eyes of the people whom you are addressing. But anyhow, this is a kind of new experience that I have to talk to you all just looking at your initials, which is on my screen. No problem. I'll make an effort to do that. Now, very interestingly, in fact, today's topic is new approaches in teaching media laws. So we are trying to see how best we can teach media laws in different approaches. See, we have seen conventional teaching where you go on just exactly, reproduce the book, reproduce the literature when you are teaching, but has it achieved its intended purpose? So many times mere reading, mere reproducing whatever that is there in the printed book, it doesn't certainly achieve the purpose. The job of a teacher, the job of a professor, job of a one who is imparting knowledge comes to a detailed play when he is able to read and reach more than what is seen. So that's always better. You have to approach, you have to adopt new approaches because the generations are changing. Gone are the days when the students used to sit on the floor in the village rural schools, raise their neck and keep looking at their teacher and very obediently learn. These are the days where at times the students will know more and perhaps more than what is there in the printed literature, what we circulate as the syllabus or the textbooks or whatsoever that the curriculum, in fact, the design of curriculum would say. But when it comes to convincing the students as to what exactly is the importance of the topic, what exactly is the importance of the subject, the one who is trying to give that knowledge to the student community, especially the community which has to learn from you, is that you always employ a new approach than mere reading and reproducing the literature. Now, when it comes to the art of teaching, I need not to say every teacher is well versed in art of teaching, because once you're designated as teacher, you know how to handle the folks who are listening to you. But the challenge is whom you are teaching. When it comes to teaching the students who have to graduate from the pedestal of a teacher, from the pedestal of a lecturer, from the pedestal of a professor, that is a different approach. At the same time, when you are trying to acknowledge the crowd who are not the students but who are just simply there to learn, or maybe a group of teachers, suppose a teacher is teaching another set of teachers a new subject or a new propaganda, then the approach should be different. You cannot treat the ones who are sitting in front of you as totally the ones who are just doesn't know anything, who don't know anything, and you are going to fill in all the knowledge in them. The approach will have to differ, because inherently you will know that the ones who are sitting in front of you will also know, but they are there only to largen, they are there to only to expand their knowledge, not simple or mere learning. Now let us have few examples. Now, whenever you are teaching a subject, the subjects are always categorized by the community who wants to learn. Suppose when I was the student, mathematics was always boring. At the same time, mathematics is an interesting subject, but why I always felt mathematics as boring subject? I have no heart to learn that subject. I am not prepared to learn that subject. The subject itself is not bad. The subject is highly interesting. The subject is very beautiful. But what exactly is what I want to know? What exactly is I am willing to learn is what that makes the difference. That is the reason when you are taking an admission, when you are giving an admission to the pupil, to a student or to a pupil, you will always have these kind of this preliminary interview session, what exactly you want to learn, why you have come into this course. When in fact I joined law, it was more a kind of an accident. In fact, I was not exactly intending to join law. It was not even my plan to join law. My plan of joining law, my joining law was an accident. But once you are inside there, how you are going to tune, or if you are not already tuned, how your teaching staff, how your professors, how your teachers are going to tune you up, that is what is the challenge. That is where your new approaches comes into the picture. For example, before we go to teaching of media laws, the new perspective, new approaches in teaching media laws, we will generally have some examples how best how best to reach a particular piece of knowledge to one who is intending to know that. Now, if you take out, for example, in the law students, we have lot of laws. Suppose the Indian Penal Code. If you take out Indian Penal Code and if you are just trying to read what is the definition of death, what is the definition of murder, it is just 3 or 4 lines. Will this suffice the student to know the exact depth of that? It is certainly wrong. So for that, what you have to do, a professor will always cling on to certain examples, certain illustrations, certain stereotype of cases, certain incidents that has already happened. First you tell a story and then you tell a moral. This is what is the approach which has been generally being followed, so as to make the subject even more interesting and even more to have a deeper effect. I was telling that if I am teaching a particular subject, if I am teaching the law of torts, if I am teaching the law of procedure, if I am teaching the law of arbitration, if I simply read out, take out the textbook, of course from the examination point of view, whatever that is there in the textbook, whatever that is there in the curriculum, that has to be exactly understood. But that will not suffice. We had one teacher, we had one poem, we had one English teacher by name Rangappa. I am telling my school learning days, which is easily more than 4 decades older. We had one teacher called Mr. Rangappa, who was our English teacher. We had one poem, Radha the Milkmaid, where Radha used to go and sell milk in the local market there. And The poem was so interesting that the Radha, whenever she went to sell milk, she went to sell the milk products in the local market, she used to always sing in a loud voice, taking the name of Krishna. She used to dance and then sell. Our teacher, this was the poem. And our teacher used to always, Mr. Rangappa used to always, in fact, do the dance, take rolls, take rocks, and then he used to do all this, put on all these actions. And he used to particularly tell us, look, why I am doing all these things. Is it that I have to do this? I have to make myself appear like one joker, like one dancer, for you all to know this poem? Yes, it is, because you might forget if I simply read out the poem as it is, but when you are associating your memories, when you are associating your remembrance with what all I am doing, it is very easy to remember what is the poem. When you recall my dance, when you recall my roles, when you recall my rocking, you will immediately know what are the sentences, what are the exact words associated with that poem. See, this is what that takes knowledge into a deeper approach, into a deeper penetration. Now, coming to all the subjects, may it be media loss, may it be any other subject, the approach is what that makes all the difference. I have to quote one example. The greatest philosopher, Plato, was questioned. He was asked, what is that which is making this world be in a moment? What is this? What is that thing which is keeping this world on a go, in a moment? What is keeping it moving? Then Plato would say, without a gap of second, what is keeping the world going as of today is the problem, existence of a problem. Then people, in fact, suddenly asked him with a sudden exclamation, why is that? If there is no problem, whether the society doesn't move, he say, imagine a society which has no problems and let us have an overview if the society moves. Now we have problems, that is the reason the entire society, entire movements, entire chemistry that's happening in the society is because of there is some problem at a different level. Now, if people are committing errors, if people are committing crimes, if people are committing torts, if people are breaking law, then you have this entire mechanism of your law enforcement, your courts, your justice, your lawyers, your paralegal assistants, everything. Let us imagine no one does wrong. Let us imagine no one commits any error. Then absolutely there is total absence. Everything, the entire system of law enforcement, entire system of police, entire system of justice, everything becomes redundant. Let us imagine a society where people are highly health conscious. They don't do anything that can push them into bad health. Let us imagine they eat very good food, they eat clean food, they never take any chances of falling sick, then they don't fall into any kind of health problems. Everyone maintains absolute health standards. Then what becomes redundant? Your entire healthcare system becomes redundant. You will not have pharmaceuticals, you will not have doctors, you will not have hospitals. So by quoting so many examples like this, then Plato would say, what is keeping the society on a go is the existence of a problem. If there is no problem, entire society will fall into a standstill. It will become not a human society, and it will rather become a society of nature, society of animals, because animals, they don't have much problem, troubleshooting mechanism. They live, even if they have problem, they solve the problems by themselves, and they don't want a court, they don't want Simba Rock, what we see in these latest movies, all these things, animals talking, that and all, the animals, they don't require, they still live, they still lead a happy life, because they don't fall behind a problem. Everything that happens in their lives are automatic by law of nature. Now, why I quoted the example of Plato is that every knowledge is associated invariably with a problem. Now, if I take the newspaper which I used to read when I was a student about 35 years or 40 years ago, we had Prajavani, we had Deccan Herald. Prajavani used to be hardly 4 or 5 pages. Why the newspapers today have gone beyond 25 pages, 30 pages, 35 pages at times. Sometimes it becomes a journal. Why is this happening? Is it because the news is increasing, the size of news is increasing? No, the news can remain the same. The narration of the news, the presentation of the news is increasing. If you simply say so and so arrested in so and so case, then it is an ordinary news. No one wants to read it. Everyone will say that okay, it is something happened at some particular place. Nothing is interesting. At the same time, you add too many things to that, you quote a background of that, and you have your own analysis attached to it, you have your own views pinned to it, then it becomes a broader news. The size of the news would increase, the number of sheets would certainly enlarge. Now, this is what is the difference of growth of approaches which we have seen over a period of time. Now, we used to have the stories of Vikram and Betal. Now, why a movie of 3 hours of Ramayana now sprung into some thousands of episodes? It's because how a narration went on differing. Now, if you take the paintings of Ajanta Ellora caves, one painting, if you look at, one painting will tell a voluminous story. No one has to write a voluminous story. The one who looks at the painting will understand a voluminous story because the painting itself is so expressive. If you go to Sistine Chapel in the city of Vatican, every painting of Michelangelo, every painting of Da Vinci will tell you thousands of pages, thousands of volumes. There have been commentaries that are written on each painting that runs into volumes, but the painting remains one single frame. Now, why is it happening? This is how you understand. Everyone understands the things in a different perspective. Two persons won't think in a single perspective. Every person has different perspective. Every person, if let us imagine a group of 5 people that's looking at a same scene. Everyone imagines, everyone thinks, everyone perceives the same scene in a different way. Perspectives and perceptions differ. This is why we say everyone has to reach, the one who is imparting knowledge has to reach everyone. Now, is it justified that Shyam Sundar, who is teaching a particular subject today, to 100 students who are sitting in a classroom and 100 students to have 100 different perceptions? No. The teacher's main job is to ensure that 100 students are watching him, but 100 students are not let to have 100 different perceptions, 100 different perspectives, because you are teaching something which is a hard subject. The students, the learning community have no chance of having their own perceptions. If Indian Penal Code section so and so talks as section so and so, it has to have the same effect on every student. May there be 100 in number or may there be 200 in number. So the job of the teacher is to ensure that the approach what he is adopting should reach all the 100 in an effective manner without giving room for the 100 students either to have 50 different perceptions or 100 different perceptions, but at the end of the day have only one single perception. In my last few talks which I have had in Deva University, I have quoted some interesting cases. I will tell you the example of one case which happened. Now, why the perspective difference? Perspectives will will differ from time to time. Nathuram Godse, of course, this is all recorded instances. I am not taking sides, and neither I am trying to praise somebody, or this is just for the purpose of pure knowledge. Nathuram Godse, in Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi's assassination case, argued his case himself. He never appointed a lawyer for himself. Of course, his fellow accused persons had different lawyers. The trial went on for a long time. One Mr. Dhaftari was the special public prosecutor who was appointed to run the case for prosecution. All the accused persons, including Veer Savarkar, who was one of the accused, had his own lawyers. Different accused persons had different lawyers. But Nathuram Godse, who was the prime accused, who was the assailant, who was the assassin, he argued his case all by himself. His way of presentation was felt to be so effective. After the initial trial was over, the appellate court was constituted at Shimla. The bench was headed by two judges. One of the judges was Justice Khosla. After the entire appeal hearing was over, of course, we all know the final outcome of the judgment, and he was sentenced to death. But Justice Khosla, after hearing the case, who was one of the judges who was sitting there, would come and make a very brave public statement saying that if this was not a court and if this was a jury, I am sure Nathuram Godse would have been acquitted with overwhelming majority, because by then we had courts, we did not have jury. You all know the jury it's like a group of public who will be sitting and who will be asked to take a decision over and above as normal individuals in the society. He may be legally wrong, but they will apply logic, they will apply common sense, and they will come to a decision that in a particular given situation, by violating law also, if someone has done certain things for a good purpose, the jury can give pardon, jury can acknowledge his act, and jury can even hold that he is not guilty. Of course, the jury system was by then not there. That is the reason Justice Khosla would say, if the jury system was still there, I am sure that by looking at the arguments, by looking at the defenses, by looking at the tenor in which Mr. Godse presented his case, his defense, he would have been acquitted. What made the judge come to a conclusion that in a case of murder of the national leader, father of nation, the judges would have such an effect on their mind that they should have had some other kind of lenient considerations to an accused person? This is what the effect which an orator can make on the crowd which is listening, but always the effect may not be correct. When Adolf Eichmann's case happened in Tokyo and Nuremberg's trial, everyone were tried for the crimes of war, and finally Adolf Eichmann, who was the then Lieutenant General of Adolf Hitler, will take a defense saying that why you are prosecuting us, why you are blaming us for killing Jews? They are all war. It was all those things happened in a situation of war where we considered them as our enemies, and killing the enemy in a war is justified. And more so, why are you trying to prosecute me? I was under the command of somebody, that is the supreme leader, Mr. Hitler. Whatever he said, as a prompt soldier, I have to carry out the command. Now you cannot prosecute me for this. The courts and jury those days felt that the defense of Adolf Eichmann was highly justified. But at the end of the day, the court will come to a conclusion that no, this defense is wrong. Now, I am going to sum up by quoting one more case in R versus Dudley Stephenson. In a small boat, a major ship got wrecked. A small boat which was attached to the major ship that got wrecked, a life-saving boat, what we can call it as. 5 of them, they were thrown to the sea. And after a few days of sailing without food, everything got over. There was a small boy. The captain of the boat was Mr. Dudley. He comes to a conclusion that we all will have to leave. The small boy who was there on this boat, who was a helper boy, he was already unconscious because he had drunk the sea water. Now all these 5 of them will think, the 4 of them will think, the adults, now this boy is already unconscious. We don't know how long we'll have to still sail without knowing when we are going to be thrown to the shores. Let us kill this boy who is already unconscious, let us eat his body, and then we'll try to survive. Out of 4, 2 of them will oppose, but Captain Dudley Stephen and another person will concur, and when the boy is sleeping, they'll kill, and all 4 of them will consume his. This is a case that in fact happened. Of course, it sounds little barbaric, but it is a case that has happened in the history. So all of them will consume the flesh of this boy, and they will live for a few days, and within that, luckily, they were thrown to shores, and when they were thrown to shore, they were tried for an offense of murder. They were booked for an offense of murder. They will take up a plea that no, we did not intentionally kill the boy. it was killing for necessity. It was a killing for dire need. Now, why do we hold, why we have to be tried and held guilty for killing a boy, killing for an offense of murder? Jury on that day, the media on that day fully supported the argument of this Captain Dudley and three others, and they all held in favor of the four persons that no, this killing was not with any intention of committing murder. It was only for the purpose of dire necessity. Even if we were in that place, we would have killed. It was killing for survival. The trial reached finality. At the first level, jury acquitted all of them and the matter went in appeal. Finally, the judge, wise judge, sitting in judgment, final judgment, will hold them guilty for an offense on one particular ground. That is, he will ask one question to all of them, to the lawyers who then represented these four persons. You killed whom? You killed a person who could not offer any protest. You killed a person who could not cry for his life. You killed a person who was a small boy. Why couldn't you have been one among four of you elders, one among four adults could not have sacrificed your life for the others? You did not do that. You all four adults fell upon the life of person who could not offer resistance, who could not save his own life, and who was unconscious. Is this not trying to overpower an innocent, trying to overpower a person who could not save his own life? Therefore, you have committed an act of murder, but at the same time, the punishment wise, in fact, that they could have been punished with death sentence. A smaller punishment was awarded, but they were held guilty of murder. Why I quoted these three examples of cited cases? You just imagine the way in which a matter is presented, the way in which a particular piece of knowledge is reached over can make different effects, can make even effect on large number of people of a different notion which it should not actually have. The impact should have been something else, some other impact is happening. A judge who was hearing the appeal felt that Nathuram Godse should have been acquitted. A big jury who heard the case of Dudley Stephenson felt that they should have been acquitted. But only a prudent brain will think what exactly is right or what exactly is wrong. Now, the job of the teacher is that at the end of the day, when you are imparting the knowledge, it may reach the person who is receiving may receive it in different perspective. The effect of your lecture may be different on different purpose, but the art of the one who is teaching should be that his insurance should always be that it should only have one single effect at the ultimate. It may have any kind of passing references, it may have any kind of intermediate notions, but at the end, when you end the imparting of the knowledge, when you end your session, it should only give one message. Now, coming to new approaches in teaching media laws. Now, why the media laws was necessary? We did not have so many laws. As you all know, each and every part of law governing the areas of media came in different periods. We did not have Indian Penal Code from the beginning. Indian Penal Code came in the year 1860. Before that, the society was still being controlled. It was still conducting itself in a decent way. Why law came in why law came in picture? Why different laws comes at different points of time? Different problems necessitates different laws. Now, there are so many media laws. Starting from the Indian Constitution, of course, it gives right of expression, it gives the right of speech, it gives right of publications, it gives the right of trade. These are all fundamental rights. Now, coming to different laws, how you are trying to impart, when it comes to judgments, it always keeps changing. From Romesh Thappar's case till today the right of expressions has undergone different changes. Something which was wrong few years ago, today it may be right. Something which was right few years ago, today it may be wrong. To give you the best example, the bigamy, the adultery, the lady having sexual relationship with another, a married lady having sexual relationship with another man outside the marriage was considered a crime, but today it is no more a crime. Homosexuality was considered a crime under very Indian Penal Code. Today it is no more a crime. Attempt to commit suicide was considered crime for several long years. There were even so many convictions. Today it is no more crime. Why we are seeing this kind of a situation? Something which was right yesterday, today it has become wrong. Something which was wrong yesterday, today it has become right and acceptable. This is because of changing nature in the society. And this is why at different points of time, different laws have come into picture. When we did not have cable TV, we never had the need of a law called the Cable TV Network Rules. Cable TV network rules came when after the cable TV came. Before cable TV, the Press Council Act could take care of the newspaper conduct, could take care of the conduct of slander, would take care of the conduct of libelous publications. But why we came across different points of time? It because of the changes that took place from time to time in the society. The famous NDTV and RK Anand's case, the NDTV reporter publishes a particular news which was considered contempt by the Supreme Court because some materials were used which was not in a good taste. In Uma Khurana's case, some journalists, some reporters, they in fact designed a particular, in fact they mocked a particular situation of to sensationalize a news. We see all these things, the reenactment of something that has happened. We see a lot of TV programs that are coming these days, that some crimes that has happened in a few years ago, they in fact reenact the same story by appointing some actors, some role managers and all, and finally they try to reenact the entire case. Is it right? In Uma Khurana's case, such a reenactment took place. A TV channel went on a bombarding show which resulted in 5 or 6 people losing jobs and a criminal case being slapped against some 10 or 15 of them who were the school staff. Finally, when the court was looking at the actual case, they came to know that the actual incident that was shown on the TV, as if a small girl being molested by a school teacher, it never occurred. And the court came to know that it was an enacted story and the entire visuals were generated just for the purpose of sensationalizing and reenacting a story. See, this kind of disasters can occur. That is the reason lot of news, lot of new laws, lot of new rules have come into the picture at different point of time. Now, as I told, there are too many laws governing the areas of media. Now, if you are taking for example, am I still audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Sorry, suddenly some chemistry changed on the screen. That is the reason. Okay. Now, at different points of time, there are different laws that has come into picture. Now, a teacher who is teaching the newspaper publication related laws today will have to teach more about how the cable television network rules, how the cable television laws have to be presented. Now, the approach and the subject both have undergone a difference, necessitating a difference. The one who used to teach how to write an article, how to present an article, how to write an article without employing any kind of defamatory approaches, any kind of approaches without hurting the sentiments of masses, without hurting the sentiments of any particular person, today will have to go and teach how best you will have to register a story, how best you will have to do a shoot, how best you will have to do a voiceover, and within the 4 frames permitted by the law. So this is what is this is how the approach of teaching will go on getting different from time to time. Now coming as I told you, there are too many laws, but let us concentrate after the cable TV television rules, network rules 1994. This can be read for both print media and for digital media and also television media, of course. It prohibits certain things and it brings in certain new procedures and certain new methods. I am not going to bug you all by reading what exactly it says, but only Rule 6 is what I am going to tell you, because this is how this one example will let us know how we have to present the teaching when we are trying to enlighten the one who has to learn. Rule 6 would read, no program should be carried in a cable service which offends the good taste or decency, contains criticism of friendly countries, contains attack on religious and communities or visuals or words contemptuous of religious groups or which promote communal attitudes, contains anything obscene, defamatory, deliberate, false or suggestive innuendos and half-truths, is likely to encourage or incite violence or contains anything maintenance of law or other which promote anti-national attitudes, contains anything amounting to contempt of court, contains apprehensions against the integrity of president and the judiciary, contains anything affecting the integrity of the nation. I would request all of you to go through Rule 6, which has about some 10 to 15 clauses in it. Now there is a prohibition on so many things. What if Rule 6 is exactly followed? We will have 0 programs on the TV, we will have 0 material to read in the newspaper. This is because if you exactly follow everything that is written, that is reduced here as a rule, and every journalist or every reporter or every publisher would rather find it difficult to write anything, because whatever he writes would affect or would offend somebody. Now how best this has to be followed? Now let us imagine the way in which the news channels these days are promoting the news. Now how many of us will still watch the news on DD1? Hardly any one of us, because what is it? It's simply somebody is sitting there and trying to read out something, what happened at a particular place, what happened at a different place, and is this news? That's exactly the question which every one of us will have to ask ourselves. This is exactly the news. But what we see on the private news channels, the sensationalized, the aggravated, the extravagant form of the same news. Now, why do we accept the sensationalized news and why do we dislike the news which is not sensationalized? Because we like to accept, our genetics have been redesigned to accept only that is sensationalized. Anything which comes simple, anything which comes in a calm and congenial and a composed way, we don't want that. This is the reason the media these days has stepped into a situation, has stepped into a forum where news is less, the sensationalization has gone more. Earlier, the life of the newspaper or life of a news used to be 10 or 15 minutes. You read the newspaper and you throw it and go. But these days, the life of the news will have to go on for 24/7, means 24/7 it has to circulate the same news with different perspectives, and we have something called as these days the panel discussions. Just reading out the news will not suffice. Every member on the panel will go on importing his own views, will go on saying his own opinions, will go on raising, and you know some of the anchors and some of these editors, they scream to the epitome and they scream to the peak of their voice. They themselves, they won't allow others to talk and they want others to be on the panel as well. You see different kind of characters giving different kind of perspective to the same news. One single news gets projected in different ways. I came to know recently there is one TV channel that is coming up that is called as Counter TV. You just imagine Counter TV. What exactly Counter TV will do? They have been advertising what exactly Counter TV will do. if somebody is trying to say some news against you and no one wants to listen to you, Counter TV will give you a platform against some fee or some money. You can go and say whatever you want to say. You will not be stopped by any intervening anchor. You will not be stopped by an editor who is screaming to the peak of his voice. You will be let to say whatever you want to see. Whatever that is there in the media, you can go on counter. This is what is Counter TV. You just imagine to where we are reaching. Why is this happening? Do we only see news? No, we are seeing an exaggerated form of news, a distortion of news. So, whatever the media, and is media only news? Now, when we are talking about media studies, are we seeing only news or anything that is capable of being communicated from one end to another end? News is not just what the media is. Media is a view of somebody. That is where all these things are accepted. Now, why, in spite of the laws being so strict that you are not supposed to defame somebody, still you are not supposed to talk ill of somebody? Why Riya Chakravarti, so though she is just an accused in the case, why some channels keep assassinating her character? Some channels keep go on talking about what she did, where she went, what time she had, she went for her test, and what time some other TV actress, some other film actress went for a lab test in a particular hospital. All these things, why the news channels, why the media are allowed to say. There are laws which prohibit the media say all these things, which as a matter of news. At the same time, there are media laws that gives the right to the same news agencies or the media entities to express their opinions. That comes under right of expression. Now, 24/7, whatever that is going on today, is it all news? No. News may be only 1 or 2 or 5% of that. Rest 95% is the right of expression that is associated with the news. Now, the moment you see something as news, it is not just news, it is news associated with right of expression. Right of expression of whom? Right of expression of some reporter who can express his views, right of expression of some editor who can express his views, right of expression of some panelist who can express his views. So, when a teacher, when we are teaching media laws, when we are adopting an approach, we are not just going to say that something is barred, you are not going to do this. At the same time, you will also have to say what is permitted. Now, if you simply read out Rule 6, as I said, no TV channel can run, no print media can publish anything, because there are so many prohibitions. There are so many prohibitions. You can't distort the name of somebody, you can't take the nickname of somebody, but we always see the Chief Minister of the state being addressed with his nickname, the Chief Executive of the state being addressed with his nickname. Why is this permitted? This comes under right of expression. Now, we are coming, I am just trying to switch back over to the approaches. Now, we as teaching staff, we as professorial staff, we will have to adopt an approach, we will have to approach the students, how the student accepts us, how the learning person accepts us. If we just have one approach, that this law reaches this area and this law reads like this, we are not going to reach the exact knowledge. The law is best known when it is broken. So, you always teach a media law unless you quote a breaking of law, unless as they widely say, as they fairly say, the essence of law is known when it is broken. If you don't break the law, the presence of law will be unknown. Only when you do something wrong, you will know what is right. Right and wrong are complementary to each other. Unless right exists, unless wrong exists, the right is unknown. Therefore, the approach in teaching media laws, according to me, should be that what is permitted, in what level, and what is being done is what which is all permitted, or to what extent, or to what extent the permissions are contempted. See, you are permitted to sing, but you are not permitted to scream. So the approach should be, one who is imparting the knowledge has to say what is screaming and what is singing. Both can be in a louder voice, but it makes, what makes the difference is the presence of tune, the presence of beauty of music, and absence of tune, the absence of beauty of music. This is what we as teaching staff will have to reach it over to the student by quoting all those examples which we are seeing. Now, as I was telling, if you juxtapose two similar news items of some 15 years old newspaper and present day's newspaper, both will give probably the same news, but one will give a deeper approach and one will give a lesser approach, an outer approach. Why the deeper approach comes? When you are associating news with an experience, comes a deeper approach. What will happen if the TVs don't show the visuals of that reporter who is giving the news without standing in that harsh situation? Suppose a news reporter who is reporting about an ongoing flood or an ongoing typhoon or an ongoing drought-filled society, the news reporter will go and stand next to an overflowing river and he will try to, he'll be drenching in rain and he'll have his raincoat on and still he'll go on reporting the news. Can we not reach the news of heavy rains, heavy floods in a particular place without these visuals in background? We can still reach, but the penetration will be less. The one who is wanting the news will not have the total picture. Now, me as a person having witnessed a flood will easily understand if someone says there is floods, overflow of rivers, having witnessed particularly personally how an overflowing river will look like, how a disaster of a flood can happen. For me, it is easy to perceive. At the same time, for my son who has never seen a flood affected area, for my son, an younger member of the family who has never witnessed heavy rains, heavy pours, he will know these things only when he is seeing a reporter who is standing in the background of these visuals. So the approach, the penetration is more. Now let us take the same thing to a third level. A reporter standing in an actual flood affected area and reporting. The third kind of thing comes, no rain, no floods happening, but still someone creates a flood kind of situation with digital interface in a studio and shows. What is prohibited? Prohibited is the third kind of things. Actual thing did not happen, but you are trying to create something which did not happen and presenting it as an actual news. Presenting it as an illustration is not barred. Presenting it as an imagination of an artist is not barred, but presenting it as something which actually happened with a pseudo visual is which is barred. This is what exactly happened in Uma Khurana's case. I'm sorry. A particular violence had not happened on a school child, but they had carried a news by planting a decoy, a child being molested in a studio environment, and they had presented it as an actual news. Now the approach should be that when we say, the student will suddenly spring back and ask you, now don't we have a right to illustrate a particular thing? You have a right to illustrate, but you will have to say that it is an illustration. You cannot present certain things without. These days you keep seeing, if somebody is arrested, a politician is arrested, the TV channels will actually show a prison. So that all those bars, the politicians figure behind those prison bars. Is it permitted? No, it is not permitted. Unless you put on the screen illustrated. Because every person who is arrested is not exactly put behind the bars. Let us imagine a situation if a politician is arrested and is given to police custody for the purpose of interrogation, he will never be put behind the lockup. He will never be put behind the bars. But the TV channels, some media sources will still be printing the images as if a particular politician, as if a particular person is behind the bars. Now, what is barred? Saying that somebody is in the police custody is not barred, because the person is, even if you are enacting an illustration, enacting an illustrated picture, enacting a cartoon, enacting a caricature showing somebody is in the police captive, not barred. But same time, if you put somebody's picture behind the bars, this is barred. This is what is an illustration which is exaggerated is barred. Now we as teachers, we as teaching faculty, when we are reaching over, we will have to first say, we will have to have an approach that things that look sensationalized, things that look extravagant may look very nice. You might get more TRP, you might get more visuals, you might get more footfalls, but at the same time you are distorting. These days, all of us may be witnessing too many incidents. Recently, we have had a contempt situation where one of the senior most lawyer of the Honorable Supreme Court was held guilty for contempt for making certain tweets. In fact, a very great argument was presented. Now, I don't want to take names. A very great and sustainable argument was presented on the right of expression. Don't I have right to say what I feel like? The Supreme Court said no. You have no right to say. You have no right to demean an institution. The person who was tried for contempt had tweeted that the disasters happened because of the Supreme Court. The Chief Justice is sleeping when the entire world is facing Corona. All these, with the tenor in which the tweets were made, it was not in good taste. Finally, the judgment was that he was held guilty and he was fined. Now, why I quoted this example is there is something which is permitted and there is something which goes beyond the permitted level, which goes into a level of contempt. Now, when we are approaching the teaching to sensationalize, see where the students will learn all this. The student who is tomorrow getting into a media job of making caricatures or making visuals, he will today's student is tomorrow's deliverer. He is going to do all these things sitting on a computer, how to sensationalize this student, how to sensationalize this particular news. He will put all these caricatures, he will put all these things looking, somebody is sitting behind the bars, somebody is, especially this drug abuse and all, somebody is actually holding an injection syringe and trying to inject himself. All these things of caricatures will be done. Where he has learnt all these things? He must have learnt all these things by looking at something or by hearing somebody. Now, when we are sending them out equipped with certain knowledge, let us adopt an approach which will clearly give him the knowledge what is right and what is wrong, at the same time clearly warning him that he is not supposed to do something what is wrong and he can do only what is right. Now, therefore, so many cases which we see these days against journalists, so many cases we see these days against reporters, so many cases we see these days against these anchors. Why are these happening? See, especially the students have to be told very clearly that it's not very easy to get away from a case. The defamation cases, sometimes it is filed for huge compensation claims. It might be some 50 lakhs, 1 crore, 2 crores, depending upon the worth of the person who was subjected to the news. And sometimes the prosecution may be for criminal prosecution, and we keep reading so many news reports that so and so journalist was jailed, so and so journalist was reporter was sentenced. Why this is happening? You may be working as a reporter. Tomorrow when you are being tried, you are tried individually for your personal wrongs. The editor may be spared, the owner of the media entity may be spared, but you as reporter, you as writer who has reduced that particular news will be held personally guilty. You may have to face jail, you may have to pay huge compensation, and your company, your employer may not come to your rescue. These are the areas which we will have to tell to all those students, which this we don't find when you are reading this particular media laws. It only says what is the offense and what is the penalty. It does not give you the illustration, a detailed dilated view, a detailed dilated picture of what and how somebody will suffer at a particular given point of time. That's very nice. I have some questions also. Now, to sum up my my small session, I would say when we as teachers, when we as imparters of the knowledge, we have responsibility. We have responsibility in saying that what exactly is right and what exactly is wrong, and we have a responsibility in saying with all those illustrations and quotes that look at such and such case, it's because of this such thing happened. Unless we quote it with an example and say wrong notions are likely to be carried, the written laws are always likely to be broken. As I told you, the laws are meant to be broken. We will see more instances of our today's students and tomorrow's journalists breaking laws and becoming known as irresponsible and reckless people. Let us not let it happen. Let us adopt an approach where we give them more illustration of what is right news, what is a right approach. At the same time, of course, advertisements, sensationalizing, presenting it in a better way is always necessary. Therefore, we will always have an approach where very plain approach, very literal approach also may not work at times. Let us of course season it with a little sense of law. Let us season it with little sense of humor within the ambits permissible under law. And I have some questions here. And Soma Datta, a guest, has posed a question. Media disseminates information which do not reach people. Media audience easily. In the era of corporatization of media, is there a need to rewrite media laws to suit the changes that happened since Constitution was drafted and adopted? No need of rewriting. The present laws are fertile enough to deal with every situation. But as I said, our laws are fertile enough, but what is now failing to take care of the situation, failing to arrest the damages, failing to arrest the wrongs that are happening is the law has failed to create its deterrence because the laws are unknown. The presence of law has to be known first. Why the deterrence of law? The law has failed to create deterrence in our country is that large areas of laws are unknown. The presence of law has to be known. We as teaching faculty will have to ensure that first we advertise laws. Why I was reading few lines of this particular rule 6 was that we have a responsibility to tell to every student that see, there is existence of this law and the effect of breaking this will be this, and you will also have to give all those examples of those cases where the journalists are sentenced, where the reporters are punished, including the cases of contempt for reckless tweeting, for reckless expressions and all these things. When we say all these things, tomorrow's journalist, today's student is going to very well bear in mind that what I am going to do tomorrow is going to be right or wrong, and certainly I am very sure that we are going to have more responsible journalists and more responsible reporters. So this is what is for you, Somadatta sir. And Parshuram has asked me where the faculties can get good number of case studies in single umbrella. Could you share some sources if possible? Of course, this is another challenge. As a faculty member who is teaching media laws should first be, I would say, he should first become a student of law, so that once a faculty member who is teaching media laws becomes a student of law, invariably he will read so many legal cases, so many legal instances. Of course, these days we have so many search engines and so much of legal archives which are freely available on these digital platforms. It's very easy to access these cases, these decisive cases. The moment you type the media laws, the media famous media cases, do's and don'ts, it will give you with illustrated cases, with illustrated case laws, that what is right and what is wrong. This is for you, Parshuram sir. And Mr. Ganguly is asking, sir, you mentioned about right of expression in connection with presenting views, but don't it go against law in that case? Or don't freedom of expression itself as the right of contradict other laws? This is a very beautiful query that is raised. Of course, what is freedom? Whether freedom is a blanket right? No. Right of freedom of speech, freedom of expression comes associated with great responsibility. Every law is associated with a duty. A law which is every right is associated with a duty. A right which is not, which is perceived without it being associated in the absence of a duty, it cannot be called as a right. So before we understand our right, let us be conscious of what is our duty. Please go through some major case laws are there, like Ramesh Thapar's case, Maneka Gandhi's case, where a right is always an right of expression is not unhindered. Of course, the media is known as fourth pillar of democracy. Whether is it the right of media to say anything and everything, the courts have said, made it very, very clear, it is no more res integra, what is permitted and what is not permitted. In Justice Swatantar Kumar's case, the Honorable Delhi High Court and the Supreme Court had an occasion to say, what all you can say, what all comes within the right of expression, what all crosses the limits of expression. You can call somebody as wrongdoer. At the same time, you cannot call somebody as a scoundrel, because both the expressions may carry the same meaning, but one is permitted, one is always perceived in a negative sense. So the right is always associated with a duty. You can bring out a news saying that so and so central minister is alleged, is accused of so and so crime. This is news. But at the same time, you cannot pull his family, you cannot pull his antecedents, you cannot sensationalize, you cannot use nicknames, you can't go on calling fraudster, the expressions like fraudster, prankster, fraudulent. These are what that is prohibited, because it surpasses the accepted levels of expressions. Therefore, there are so many case laws that distinguishes what is permitted, what is allowed within the right of expression, what is beyond expression. Now, these are some queries which I received, and if you have any queries, I think you can open up the interaction session. For me to sum up in 4 lines, of course, our approach should be that as teaching faculty, as teachers, if you just read out the law, the media law, the student may not understand. The student will always have his own perception. You will have to associate these laws which you are trying to teach with so much of examples, so much of quoted instances, and so much of illustrations. So the exact effect of these laws are known. In Indian Penal Code, if you take for example, every section itself is associated with an illustration. So adapting illustrations will be more congenial when we teach, and it will read sometimes the law as such as it by itself is, it will, if you reading of this entire, media rules and all, sometimes it will be boring. But if you associate it with a case law illustrated, if you associate it with a beautiful case law associated with that, it will sound more interesting, and it will lead to a single perception to the minds of all those 100 or 50 students who are present in your class, without leaving room for every student or few students understanding it in one way and few students understanding it in different way. Our approach should be that whatever we say at the end, it should have one single effect. Thank you.
Hello, sir. There's one question.
Yes, please tell.
The question is there any media related case study books available for teaching?
May not be an exact book. If you take Mr. Arun Shauri has written Anita Got Bail. I think all of you should read that, because it gives you an insight of how the court works, how the laws work at the same time, because it is a journalist who is experiencing all these things. That's very beautiful. Of course, there are so many media case laws which might not be, of course, I don't know if there is any such single book which contains all these media laws, media cases. Of course, but if you type, if you just make some small research on these websites, and if you on these search engines, you'll get so many case laws that are closely associated with media laws. Of course, our friend Mr. Manjunath, faculty members of Reva University should can certainly make out a compendium of these books and bring out study material on this.
Sure, sir. Definitely, I'll take your help and I'll compile one, sir.
So there's one more question. Caricature of politicians are accepted, but why not religious dignitaries?
Yeah, because see, caricatures of politicians are, because what happens is, long man. Before I answer your question, previous question, there is long man law series, and my colleague has assisted me on this. There is something called as long man law series, LONGMAN, long man law series. This is on media law. I think it has so many legal cases that are exactly associated with media laws. I think it can be of some use. Your next question, your next query is why the caricatures are permitted in respect of politicians, why the caricatures of religious things are not permitted. The constitution and the laws associated with the religious harmony, that's a very sensitive area. As I told you, not two different people will perceive a single thing. Every person perceives a particular thing in his own way. Now, someone, when you are talking about religion, when you are talking about religious beliefs, under the constitution, everyone has got a freedom of his own religion. Imposition of a religion is prohibited. It is totally barred under law. No one, either indirectly or directly or in any manner, try to impose his religious views or his religious beliefs or his religion on somebody else. Now, when you are doing a caricature, or when you are doing a write-up, or when you are doing a publication pertaining to religion, you may not be exactly intending to impose. You may be exactly putting your own views, but it can have the effect of imposition. Why media has to be responsible is, why a journal has to be responsible, the journalist is expected to be more responsible. Not every time he wants to impose his views on the public. He wants to impose his views on the audience. He wants to impose his views on the readers. He may be simply writing, but because of his stature as a publisher, because of his stature as an expressor, because of his stature as a writer or a publisher, he may be unknowingly imposing without his knowledge. Once an imposition happens, once an imposition of a view happens, it directly contempts the right of religion. That is the reason, in respect of religious matters, caricatures and innuendos are totally prohibited.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any more questions? If you have any more questions, you may please unmute your mic and ask the question.
Sir, question related to blasphemy law, sir.
No,
Hello?
I didn't get you. I didn't get you.
Blasphemy, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Any case study is available, sir, for blasphemy?
Too many. Just type that word and put an oblique cases. Too many are there. Too many. And recent ones have happened. You know, I have certain restrictions in saying that. Of course, there are too many.
Okay, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes, madam. Tell me.
Yeah, sir. I'm Dr. Sukanya. I'm heading the Department of Journalism, St. Philomena's College, Mysore. So
Lovely.
I teach media law, and luckily I have studied the law, sir. LLB I have done. So naturally I find it very easy to teach now. So, and I heard some of the questions regarding the books available, regarding the case studies available. First and foremost, I feel that, okay, so every teacher who teaches media law, they have to study the Bayer Act, sir. Unless
Exactly,
and
you are
until
right.
they go through that, okay, it will be very difficult for them to teach media law, sir. That is my experience because I have done the law, sir.
You are the best suited person to teach this subject because you already have the background of law. Of course,
Yes.
reading Bayer Act, yes,
Yeah.
but of course, for you to know law, for a teacher to understand what exactly it is, reading Bayer Act is very much essential. But at the same time, when you are adopting the approaching the student, if you simply read the Bayer Act, it will certainly not penetrate, madam. What happens is, along with reading the Bayer Act, you should read all these leading cases. At least there are some books. Of course, I'll be able to share some of those literatures with Manjunath after that, so that he can pass it on. See, I was quoting you initially the Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi's murder case.
Yeah.
It's a huge case. It's a huge case that runs into volumes. But some very compact form of that is also available, which will just give an oversight and an overview of the entire case. The moment if you read that, the small case law, then you will have a wider approach, because as I said, when you are telling this man was praised by the court, a student who is understanding this will certainly understand in adverse. At the end of the day, when you want to bring him back to the strict learning of law, you should always quote an example, the illustrated case, then say finally what happened, that is the reason you will have to follow this, not follow some other view.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And sir, one thing I want to tell you, it was a wonderful lecture and with lot of illustrations, sir. Thank you, really. Even I benefited, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It is always a pleasure. But in fact, I apologize all of you, because I was supposed to have come here at 3 o'clock, but suddenly two of my cases they got dragged, and in fact I was more prepared to address this session at 3 o'clock, and suddenly when the time changes, you know, everything changes. In fact, when I come next time, I'll ensure that, you know, I come out with even more interesting material. Today it was like I was prepared for something, I had to deliver something else. In fact, it became something like that. My apologies for keeping you all waiting.
It's okay, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions?
I have to tell one small illustration, one small incident that happened before on a lighter vein. We all have heard Malthusian theory of population. Malthus was known as father of population theory. He makes this population theory, and very scientifically, arithmetically, he'll propose his theory, and he would have attended every possible area of population index, how population works, how population doubles after every period of time. Then he will come and project his scientific research, and he will propound his theory, and he will say, see, this is what is Malthusian theory, this is my theory of population, this is how population gets doubled, this is how the rural population, this is how the urban population. Very beautiful theory he will produce, and he will finally say, either you like it or don't like it, according to the theory which I have propounded, after every 20 years perhaps, I think 20 years only, after every 20 years the population will get doubled. And very beautiful presentation, very scientifically oriented research he would have done. Finally, one question he will be posed with. He will be asked one question. He will be asked, Mr. Malthusian, you please tell me, you please tell us, you have given such a beautiful overview, such a beautiful scientifically acceptable theory that how the population will be doubled after every period, after a period of every 20 years periodically. Now please tell us how the population will come into control. Now the way you have presented it, that every 20 years will have double the population, 4 times, 10 times, 100 times the population. Now how the society is going to tolerate this expansion of population? Then the person who has presented such a scientific theory now will have a non-scientific, perhaps a very rational answer. He will simply say, no, don't go behind science for all this control. I have given you a scientific reason how it will, scientific basis for how it will double. But when it comes to control, he will give a simple answer saying nature will control. Now everyone will laugh at him, and he will have a semi-scientific answer for that. He will say, look, there is one theory that is highly rigid theory, that is, everything that has come into world is from here, nothing from external space. Now everything that has come into this world is from here, nothing from outside. If there is a small plant that has become a big tree, it is all from this nature. It must have consumed that nitrogen in the nature, it might have consumed that nutrient in the ground, and it must have grown into a big tree. And it is not that the tree has come in as a new existence. The nutrient in the soil, the nitrogen in the air, that has taken the form of a big tree. So there is nothing that has gone away from here, nothing that has come into this. And Malthus will quote the words of Bhagavad Gita. Malthus will say, for me, I am succored and supported by those lines of Bhagavad Gita, that everything is from here, nothing from external space. Whatever you are going to do is from here, whatever you are going to get from here, whatever you are going to lose also from here, nothing can be brought in, nothing can be destroyed. So why I quoted this example is, everything is here, nothing new can be brought in, nothing older. All these laws are meeting some situation which was very much expected. Now in 1860, when the Indian Penal Code was made, they in fact manufactured a situation of bigamy, and they made bigamy an offense. They manufactured a situation of homosexuality when homosexuality was not even known those days. The offense of homosexuality was very much limited. So our laws are fertile, our laws have got everything in it, but the situation keeps differing. So everything is from here, everything is what is already available with us. So madam, why I quoted Malthusian example is, we as teachers, if we think prudently, the law book is redundant. If a student asks us, We can quote him so much with an illustration, with an examples, what we have seen till now, and tell them what is right and what is wrong. At the end of the day, law is nothing but ethics.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. This is Melja from Christ University. So I'm just wondering, so when there is a scenario when we do have instances from history, maybe from the recent history, from different courts where some laws are interpreted differently, right? Sometimes it is, sometimes some are overruled. So how do we interpret the law that we are actually handling in such situations?
You asked me a right question, but this is the problem with the system. See what happens, as I told you, something which was crime yesterday, today it is decriminalized. Something which was accepted yesterday, today it is made a crime. We all know bhang, marijuana leaf, was in the Indian history, Indian cultural background for 5,000 long years. During Holi and all, bhang you grow and you will make that very delicious drink out of bhang. You will drink and you will enjoy. Bhang was used as medicine. The days we date back to Sushruta Samhita, the anesthesia all these days, Sushruta used to do surgical surgeries those days. The marijuana plant which was used as the main anesthetic, the thing which was legal then has now become illegal because of the changing situation. You asked me a very beautiful question. Why there are different interpretations for a single law? Same case, going to 3 different courtrooms, you will have 3 different judgments. You will have 3 different approaches. Why is this happening? It's not the law that is making an effect. It is the person, the psychology which is reading and which is using that law as in his hand is making the difference. The person, the judge who is reading this law, who is understanding this in his own way as correct way of interpretation, is giving us so many interpretations. This is a problem. Yesterday's interpretation is overruled today and say it was a bad interpretation. The right interpretation is this. This is the reason you have put me on a very beautiful subject today, new approach. The approach is all that makes the difference. Now, the approach should be a prudent approach at the end of the day. As I told you, reading of law, 2 different students reading the same law can understand it in 2 different ways. Now, the approach should be the same. Now, why I told you the judge who was listening the Adolf Eichmann's case could have acquitted him because he has done no wrong. But the judge finally who adopted the approach of humanity. You must have carried out the commands of your supreme master, but have you conducted yourself according to the laws of humanity? No. You should not have killed so many Jews even when your master asked you to kill. You should have told, Master, we are doing something against the humanity, we are not supposed to do it. So the approach should be the correct approach. The reading may be different. The approach should be the right approach, righteous approach. So if you read so many interpretations, some interpretations may be wrong, but most of the interpretations will boil down to a common approach. At the end of the day, all these laws, all these rules, regulations are made to ensure that the humanity prevails. Humanity is the basis. Anything which will not pass the test of humanity will be an honest under law. So when we are having an approach, let us see, the interpretation may be different, but if the approach at the end of the day is prudent, if it is ethical, if it passes the test of humanity, that is the right approach.
Thank you very much, sir.
That was a very knowledgeable talk, sir. We would like to thank Shamsundar sir for spending his precious time with all of us in this virtual platform. His talk on new approaches in teaching media laws has illuminated us. He has presented to us new knowledge in the field of law and practice. He has given us his wise knowledge from decades of his professional experience and also encouraged us to adopt innovative ways to teach media laws in our classrooms. I'm sure all of you have found this FDP session knowledgeable and loved listening to Shyam Sundar sir. Thank you so much, sir. I would also like to thank all the attendees for spending your time attending the second day of our faculty development program. Dear attendees, please note that it is mandatory for all of you to fill in the feedback form to get your e-certificates. You may access the link to feedback form in the chat window section. Thank you. Have a nice day. All tomorrow. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for a good session what we have attended.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Sir, we should write any feedback in that link which you have given in chat box.
Of course, you have to fill in the feedback form to get your e-certificates. And also it's mandatory to attend at least 6 sessions out of the 8-day faculty development program to be eligible to get your e-certificates.
Where is the link?
Provided in the chat section box by Mr. Manoj.
We are not getting the link, sir.
All right, I'll just post it once again.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I've posted it. I think you can access it now.
Are you sending it in the mail also?
No, the link won't be provided by email. It's provided in the chat section. And also we have a WhatsApp group that is specifically created for this FTP program. So you can also...
Yes, it is posted in the WhatsApp also?
Yes, it'll be posted in the WhatsApp group also.
Okay, thank you. Because I'm not getting the chat box here. How to reach the chat box?
You have
Can you guide me?
You have these 3 dots. If you click on that,
3 dots.
Have the chat section. So it's show chat box.
No, I'm not getting that.
If you are using the phone, your chat section will be on top on the right side.
I'm using my laptop. I'm using my laptop.
Yes, sir. In laptop, you have these 3 dots, and then if you click on that, you have show conversation or show chat box. In Mac, it shows different, and in Windows, it shows show chat box, I guess.
It is not, sir. I'm not getting it.
On the phone, it is at the top.
Device setting, meeting details, gallery, together mode, preview, apply background effects.
If not, sir, kindly join the WhatsApp group. We can send the link.
I'm already in the WhatsApp group. I hope I will be getting it in the WhatsApp.
Yes, sir. We will send it over there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. Have a nice day. See you all tomorrow.